Hello, and welcome to Live and Laid Back with Lil and Andrew. I'm Lil. I'm a member of the Tonga Parish congregation in Marrickville, namely Hepzibah. And for 4 years now, I've led the Choice Discipleship program for youth and young adults across Sydney Presbytery. I'm also a full-time organiser with the Sydney Alliance, working with migrant leaders on the Voices for Power project.
I'm Andrew. I'm the tertiary ministry organiser with Sydney Presbytery, and I worship at Leichhardt Uniting Church. And today we were going to have with us Rev Kent Crawford. We've decided to wait a few more weeks so we can tell you a little bit more about ourselves before we get to guests.
Yeah. And look, we're really excited to have you with us. You're probably wondering, what is this? And why is it happening now? Well, Live and Laid Back is about unearthing and celebrating and bringing to light people in our worlds of faith, the church, and organising who are doing great things and having their powerful stories shared.
Yeah, there's a lot of language in the Uniting Church about the church dying. But Liu and I believe that when you look at the work of our church, when you look at its members, its congregations, and its young people, there's a different story to tell. And we're hoping that this series will be one that supports you, encourages you, and maybe teaches you something new on your walk with Christ and your journey of discipleship.
It's not just going to be us throwing out answers, but it's about having discussions with guests that where we ask questions and we deal with what faith means in our contexts, whatever that might find you. We were really interested in holding a space and creating a resource for the church that wrestles with what it means to be us as the Uniting Church today. And part of that is a recognition that we haven't always made space for young people in our church. Sometimes we've done the direct opposite. And so we are really interested in continuing to expand on those resources, platforms, and support that we offer for young people.
Yeah, and this is a really important collaboration for a couple of reasons. The Uniting Church is a multicultural church, and in fact, it's the Pacific and the Korean parts of the church that are the future. In my ministry with university students in Sydney Presbytery, that has historically been mostly, not entirely, but mostly a very white expression and experience. And half the congregations in Sydney Presbytery are Pacific Islander or Korean churches. So Liu and I, as colleagues and as organisers and as friends, this is an important opportunity and moment to bring the synergy that we have together to hold a space for discussion and a burgeoning relationship across the different parts of the church. So Liu, with all that being said, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure, love to. Well, I'm here because I'm deeply invested in this conversation around vocation and discipleship because it's what's helped shape meaning and purpose in my life. Growing up as a second-gen Australian Tongan, I've lived through a lot of confusing experiences when it comes to finding my own identity and a space of belonging, and at times stuck in between two cultures, where I've found there are sometimes competing traditions when it comes to practicing Christianity and even understanding it. And if it hadn't been for the faithful lay leaders of this church and they're going out of their way to nurture me, I wouldn't be the Christian that I am today. Also acknowledging God's grace in all this. But look, I'm also here because I'm passionate about making the gospel known and about Christ's call to make disciples of all nations and seeing confident and faithful young people really active in that space. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. What about you, Andrew?
Yeah, so thanks so much for sharing, Liu. That's really powerful and important. So thank you for sharing all that. Yeah, so I'm the tertiary ministry organiser with the Presbytery of Sydney. I work across the universities in the Sydney region. So it's University of Sydney, University of New South Wales, University of Technology Sydney and the Con. And I support the work of our students in Justice Actions. So we have a student groups active at each of the university campuses called Christian Students Uniting. And they work on justice actions on their campuses and in their communities. And I also manage our campus-based mission workers, and I support the work of our chaplains. And I'm really excited to be having these conversations because for me, when I was younger and coming through the church, I spent about 10 years in the Sydney Anglican Church and then moved across to the Uniting Church. I always really struggled with the way that we would sort of talk about following Jesus and ministry, because I kind of felt like sometimes it meant, the way that sounded was like, if we're all going to follow Jesus and do it properly, then it means that we all need to move into ordained ministry. And that's how we all follow Jesus properly or well, or, and it's been really helpful for me in the time that I've been a part of Uniting Church, because I've been around people who've talked about this and have talked about vocation and discipleship and talked about, how we follow Jesus, how do we do this practically, what does this look like? And so I've come to this understanding that ministry is for all of us. We all have a ministry, whether we're ordained or not, whether we're a lay leader or not, or whether we get paid to work for the church or not. And that has to do with what our vocation is and what our call is. And that is also really important to me, because through vocation, we're able to find the way that we use our gifts to benefit the community as a whole. And we also find our own sense of self-fulfillment in using our gifts for the community. That's been really important to me and my walk with Jesus, and my the way that I'm a part of a church community as well. So I'm really excited to be having these conversations about all of those things. So you might have noticed that we have both identified ourselves as organisers, and most people don't really know what that is. I was having this conversation with my housemate just the other week, where he was telling me, Andrew, I don't know what you do. I have no understanding of that. I don't know what that looks like. So community organising is a methodology or a framework that is used for social change. And so the example that I often give people is that Barack Obama was a community organiser before he was a politician.
And I guess another good example is that while Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, the civil rights leader, was an amazing orator and speechwriter, it was community organisers that worked to see 100,000 people turn out at the Washington Monument to see him speak. And look, I can totally relate to you, because I've been working with Sydney Alliance for 6 years now, and my dad still doesn't know what I do. So it's definitely not a role that is mainstream, but I guess like we both shared that this has been sort of an area for us to explore our vocation, and it's an expression of ministry for us both.
Sure.
It's something that gives us life, and again, we're offering our gifts to the whole.
So that brings us to the end of our time today. Thanks, Liu. This has been a bit of a snippet, a bit of a taster, bit of sign of things to come.
Yeah.
So we'll be back on the 28th of May, Thursday, the 28th of May, for our first live conversation with a guest. It's going to be with Rev Kent Crawford, and we're going to be unpacking these ideas of vocation and discipleship, ministry, and the pathways for ministry in the UCA. And we hope to see you then. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, come through, fam. God bless.
It's all you.
All right, cool. In action.